Peace and love. This is Brother Faheem, and you are now tuned in to the Lead with Logic podcast. You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of Lead with Logic, the podcast. And I'm your gracious host, Brother Faheem. Hey, man, I appreciate y'all tuning in, whether you're watching it live, whether you're playing it back. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like I always say, man, life is always moving at an ultramagnetic pace. And I try to keep my boots laced so that I can win that race. So much drama in the world, people. Can't nobody feel your pain. So much going on. You know, there's so much content. If you're a content creator, there's so much content that you can tap into, that you can create, right? You know, you can use your mind to bend the matter in the thin air. But what I like to do is I like to use certain apps to garner or at least consider be able to get some content and grab some content and and bring it and present it to the people. So I see looking at the chat already. Somebody say you're frozen. What's happening, G? So, man, what can I say? The content, yes. So one of those apps is X that I use. I use X a lot of times, and I post up on there. I do spaces in there. I'll be doing spaces every Wednesday, and I'm gonna announce it every Wednesday at like 1 in the afternoon. I hold a space, but this is the Lead with Logic podcast. But nonetheless, I look through spaces. I read a lot of interesting things. A lot of things be happening and transpiring in spaces. Some great conversations. You know, you can get on spaces and learn a thing or two. There are always how-to spaces, a lot of informational, educational. But then there are also the other side. It's that balance, right? You get those low-level, low vibrational, and somewhat petty spaces, but you also get the posts that can be a little bit alarming and interesting. And so as I was going through there, something popped up on my screen. I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. And by the way, what I would like you guys to do, wherever you are, wherever you're at, please, if you're on spaces, repost this live. If you're on YouTube, send out the link and pop in the chat and we can have a nice discussion, wherever you are. Kick back and relax because I got a couple things to tell you all. But nonetheless, I'm in spaces and I came across a post that I thought was very, very alarming and very, very disheartening all at the same time. And so I figured I would come on here and build with you guys. Yeah, I figured I would build with you guys today. And so I want to name this build the Carcinogenic Mentalities to the Family's Reality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share this nice little post that I saw, this tweet that I saw. Hopefully you guys are having a great Tuesday. The week's almost over. I always say that the summertime, after the summer, the year goes by so fast. It just speeds by. So yeah, but let me let you guys check this out. Share my screen. Here we go. X. Let's do this. Let's do it. So what I'm getting ready to show you is my messages. I had to save this because it was real interesting to me. And it was disheartening. And I said, wow. Now, clearly, it's not that Tupac in the courtroom after he beat them cops in Atlanta. Not that. This is what I want you guys to look at. That's what I want you to see. So, if you can read that, it says, stepdads are men that women wouldn't date if they didn't have kids. Yeah, I saw that and I thought to myself, wow, that's crazy. That was the first one, right? Now, the second one, hold on, I lost my place. I guess the stream makes it lose its place. The second one would be this. This is the second one. If it'll pop, drum roll, please. There we go. The weakest men become stepfathers. Wow. 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 When I read that, I said, that's disheartening. That's very disheartening. Very disheartening that we even have that mentality that we think like that, right? How do we how did we get here to where we now don't respect people? Yeah. Yeah, Aeon. Yeah, peace, peace. Yeah, Aeon. How do we get here where people now have sentiments like that? Wow, that is, whew, that's beyond crazy. But people, people absolutely have these thoughts. They absolutely have them. They're out there. Now, I'm not sure how how accurate, how accurate or how prominent their representation is out in society, but I do know that there are a fraction of us who absolutely feel like that. And as you can see, it's unfortunate. But I figured that I would bring you guys a little bit of something that might be able to combat what we just saw. A couple of different voices, a couple of people to say some different things, and a couple of reports. And then I add my own commentary to it because I'm a guy who believes in family. Whenever I'm in spaces, whenever we're talking about the black people or anything, male, woman, child, I always keep in mind that, we want to make sure that we promote the family, right? How is this going to help or harm the family? Again, I always say it, nobody wins when the family feuds, so it's best that we come together and whatever we're doing, it's in love, it's in understanding, and it's for the upliftment of the family. So I saw this guy on YouTube, and I love what he had to say. And I want to share it with you guys. So y'all hang tight for a second. I think y'all gonna enjoy this. So what my man has to say.
America doesn't know about us is that there are a lot of black men showing up doing fathering every day, whether they're married or not, whether their children were born while they were married or not, or whether they got married later, or whether they're stepfathers, or whether they are fathering in so many ways. When you talk about kids who grew up in church having better academic outcomes, one of the reasons why is because they are exposed to intergenerational mentorship through different leaders. They get to see different models of people within that church. I think that there's a spirit that loves to beat black people up around things like family structure and you're not doing enough and deficit. And if you would just get your act together, or you would just, that's all punitive and retributive language that actually isn't about making a people better or pushing them forward, because you don't push a people forward by criticizing them into oblivion. You push them forward by lifting up the examples of what actually the model actually should be and is. What I know and experience that white.
So yeah, I thought that was dope. It was just a short, right? And it seemed like he was speaking about church, right? And you know, something of that nature. But the title of the short is "Are Black Fathers and Stepfathers Good?" But I wanted him to speak on that just a little bit because what we saw and what we read, it was horrible and it was ridiculous. I appreciate y'all letting me know that I was frozen in there, by the way. Again, you can like and share out the post depending upon where you are. Share it out, get some other people in here because I'll talk to. If y'all have anything to say, the chat is open. It's dynamic in real time, and I'll be answering it, looking back and forth. So this is an interactive discussion. This is a conversation. It's just not me presenting or a bill. We're speaking to one another in real time. So nonetheless, when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's crazy. So what do what does the data say about it, right? What is the data? What does the data say? Now, those were allegedly two black women who made those statements. And I say allegedly because we don't know if these were, like you said, if these were people trying to promote chaos, if these were agents of anarchy or agents of chaos. These could have been splinter cells accounts. We don't know. But they were seemingly, or at least the face on the profile pic was two black women who made these statements. So therefore, in turn, I wanted to show a couple of stats just about fatherhood and some of the ramifications, what that means in the black community. I'm on a site called Black Demographics. It's a site where you can go and get all kind of black stats about black people and what that looks like. And so this one is about black children, two parent households, and black fatherhood, right? Family living arrangements. So here we have, this is the model right here. This is black children, mothers. You know what I'm gonna get into. It says, contrary to popular belief, 42% of black children live with two parents, compared to 70% of all children, while 51% live with one parent, compared to 25% of all children. The reason why this is not well known may have to do with a commonly repeated statistic regarding out of wedlock births, which makes up 70%, which only takes into account whether or not a woman was married at the time she gave birth. This is of course doesn't factor in that many births take place to engaged or couples who are not yet married or who plan to cohabitate infinitely. So basically, it's saying that the numbers kind of are skewed or don't put things in the context, right? Because a lot of times when they say unmarried, it doesn't mean that it wasn't two family or it wasn't a two parent situation. It mean they might not have been married at the time of the birth, right? Black children statistics. So black children, two parents, that's 42%. Now this was as of June 24th, 2020. So here we have living arrangements with two parents is green, living arrangements with mother only is red, living arrangements with father only is blue, and living arrangement with neither parent is purple. So we see black children, 42% of black kids have two parents, 46 have mother only, 5% have the father only, and 7% are living with neither parent. And this is all children. So 70% of all children have two parents. 21% of all children have only one parent, or a mother only, excuse me. 4% are living with only their father, right? And then 4% are living with neither. Now, this is that black children living arrangement, the details. So, of the children living with two parents that are married to each other, that's 38%, right? 4% are not married to each other out of that group. So then you go into living with the mother only. So married spouse absent 2%, right? That's one of the stats as well. Separated 5%, divorced 7%, widowed 1%. So it gets down to the nitty gritty. So then you have 31% have never been married, right? And then it goes down. Married spouse absent is less than 1%, separated 1%, divorced 1%, widow less than 1%, and then never married 3%, right? Living with neither 7%. That's no parent present. The lower chart gives more details about the living arrangements of black children. 38% of black children live with parents who are currently married. 4% live with parents who live together but are not married. 13% of black children live with their mother who is divorced or separated, and only 31% live with a mother who has never been married. These facts add context to the out of wedlock births discussion, which usually steers the focus or cause of additional obstacles black children face on a plague of absent black fathers. The reason I wanted to pull up these stats is because, it talked about those two tweets talked about black men, the weak black men, the weakest black men being stepfathers, and also stepfathers are men that black women wouldn't want if they didn't have kids. I'm just showing you a little bit of the statistics, and I'm going to show you another one that talks about the implications of these statistics and how a fatherless home looks and how it affects the psyche and the success rate of the child. But I think it's important that we see, when we have these mentalities, when we have these perspectives on things, you are absolutely, that is your right. Everybody has an opinion and it's their right. And I'm not mad at people for having it. Quite frankly, whatever your perspective or your opinion is, that's on you. You know, you have the right to it just like I have the right to mine, but try to understand what that means in real time. Try to understand when that's acted out, or when that, how does that look, and how, what's the bigger implication, right? What's the bigger implication when it comes to families and children growing up? Because like I said in the beginning, it's about the family unit. It's about the basic unit in society, which is the family. It's about the family being whole and being intact. So yes, so that is one that I want to share with you guys. And it's a few now. It's a few. It's gonna be a relatively quick build. Yeah, it'll be relatively quick. Unless you guys have something you want to say. Like if y'all have questions, please ask. Please ask. Another study. Another study that I found that dealt with this very topic. And whoever that is, welcome, welcome, welcome. I appreciate y'all for coming in. Come on in. Kick back. Say something in the chat. But definitely listen and learn. So this is the America First Policy Institution, and this is an issue brief from May 15th, 2023. And it says issue brief, fatherlessness and its effects on American society. Key takeaways, right? Across America, 2022 data indicates there are approximately 18.3 million children who live without a father in the home, comprising about 1 in 4 U.S. children. So 1 in 4 U.S. children are living without fathers. Wow. About 80% of single parent homes are led by single mothers. Children from single parent families are twice as likely to suffer from mental health and behavioral problems as those living with married parents. This is all relative because when you say, or when people say, or they believe that men are weak for stepping in and mentoring, and that the weakest, and that the woman doesn't look at a man when he's a stepfather unless she has children and she can benefit from those children. That would, the reverse of that would be to say, or the inverse of that would be to say, hey, it's best that those children be left without, or they go without, right? When you hear that, when you shame a man into helping, to offering knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and guidance, and something I'm going to get into later, mentorship. These are the effects because, as we see in these stats, about 80% of single parent homes are led by single mothers. Now, that doesn't say succinctly, or that doesn't say precisely that the father's absent, but it does say that the mother is the most prominent figure in the child's life. So, in one study, 70% of youth in state operated facilities were from single parent homes. Children with an actively engaged father perform much better in school. Some data shows that they are 33% less likely to repeat a class and 43% more likely to get A's in school. In a study of 56 school shootings, only 10 of the shooters, so that was 18%, were raised in a stable home with both biological parents. 82% grew up in neither an unstable family environment or grew up without both biological parents together. So the absence of that father is very much impactful and very much felt from the child. It goes into a couple of deeper things. Americans are united in the belief that strong families are a net positive for society. For example, according to a Rasmussen poll of 1,200 registered voters conducted on January 21st, 2022, 84% of those polled believe a strong family, and I'm right here, a strong family is foundational to a strong America, and that parents should bear the primary responsibility for raising children. Only 11% say raising children is a community responsibility. Of those polled, 67% believe that the decline of the family is harmful to American growth and prosperity. And 65% think that children who grow up fatherless are at a significant disadvantage in life. Unfortunately, broken families, fatherlessness, and the government stepping in to take over traditional parenting duties like instilling values are an increasingly common fact of life in America. According to data from 2022, there are approximately 18.3 million children across America who live without a father in the home, compromising. We read that. This number is a major international outlier, with the U.S. having the highest rate globally of children living in a single parent household. Wow. In single parent households, excuse me. As of 2019, a staggering 23% of children live with one parent and no other adults, which is over three times the global average of 7%, according to Pew Research. In China and India, this number stands at 3% and 4% respectively. The statistics are even more staggering for Black children, with nearly 50% living with a single mother. Overall, single mothers head up 80% of single parent households. Sadly, fatherless families are four times more likely to raise children in poverty. And research suggests that 84% of homeless families are headed by women. Yeah, that's uh that's pretty staggering. Those are some staggering statistics for your ass. Yep, they are. And this is what this is what I saw when I pulled this up immediately. This was my immediate. It grabbed my eye. Fatherlessness and mental health outcomes. The effects of broken families have been staggering. Children from fatherless homes fare far worse in overall well-being and mental and behavioral health. These children are often burdened with lower self-esteem than other children, and they do not understand why their fathers abandoned them. This leads to a number of emotional problems like anxiety, social withdrawal, and depression, and it also leads to an increased risk of suicide and other forms of self harm. Some data suggests that 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes, and 85% of children who exhibit behavioral disorders are from fatherless homes. Again, you're probably thinking, why is he sharing all this data about fatherlessness and fatherless homes, excuse me, because when we have that mentality, right, that stepfathers are weak men and that women would only choose them if they hadn't first had children. Well, if no one steps in to help guide and steps in as a role model for these children, what happens? Apparently, the stats are telling us that all too it's all too common. It's a common occurrence, and like the AFPI said, it's even worse for Black children. So yeah, that's crazy. When I looked at those stats, when I looked at that stuff, I said, "Wow, this is nuts." And it's all out there, y'all. You guys can go back and look for yourself. I always recommend. I always try to offer something that you guys can you know go back and research for yourself. Aeon says, well, first, I'll start at the top. LaShanta say you're frozen. Hopefully, I'm not frozen no more. Free thinking Black man. What's happening, G? What's going on, King? Peace, peace. Aeon said, I saw that crazy ish. People love to promote chaos. Absolutely, they do. And we understand how on these social media platforms, it's free reign to promote just that. Aeon also said, I'm curious whether the female who posted those posts is herself a product of a single parent home with her mother. The irony of projections. We'll never know. You don't, you never know. People people contrive their perspectives from all different sources. They're constructed from different things, different triggers, you know, and we understand that we are living in the midst, Aeon, of a civil war of sorts, right? The Black man and the Black woman. It's a very divisive time that we live in. So it's easy for us to drink the proverbial Kool-Aid and just, you know, go with the group thing, go with whatever the crowd, go wherever the crowd is taking us. We know that's easy to do. Very rarely do people lead with logic and investigate, and be a scientist, a social scientist, right? But in my culture, God is a scientist. So you have to show and prove. Before we make these statements, that's another thing. We have to show and prove. What does data say? Have you looked at any data? Have you looked at anything, right? But something else I want to read you guys. I meant to read this first. You know, I'm getting better at these lies. I meant to read it first because I wanted to show you something that was super duper important to me. I read this back in undergrad, right? And I remember this was the cause of a lot of angst. And you guys have probably heard about it. The Moynihan report. Daniel Moynihan wrote a report about black people. And this report was from 1965, right? And you guys can find this on Black Past, right? 1965, the Moynihan report, the Negro family, the case for national action. So basically, he writes this report on the declining living conditions and mentality as the commercial elite saw it, as the dominant society saw it. And he points out a lot of things. Now, a lot of black scholars, a lot of social scientists, they tear this thing to shreds, right? Me reading this to you guys is nowhere near me advocating this as being true. But I just wanted to show you guys back even in 1965 what people were saying about the black family, how we were to move forward, and where we were at that point, right? It's on you to do your research, right? And see, is this report valid or invalid? I'm just gonna skim through it and let you hear what they said. The Moynihan report. So the non-marital birth rates in the United States from 1940 all the way up until 2014. That's a long time, good people. That's a long time. So the national rate is the blue one, right? And then you have the white people, which is below the national rate. The non-marital birth rate is below that national average. Then we have Latino or non-white, right? Which is a little bit above the white. Then we have again Latino right here, or this is non-Latino. This is non-Latino white. Then Latino right here, and then where is it? Native American is up here. Native American is pretty high, right? Then you got Asian down here, the model minority. That's what they call them, the Asians. Then black folks is right here, non-marital birth. This is people having children out of wedlock, right? That's what they call it. The Negro family, the case for national action. Office of Policy. This is interesting, y'all. You guys should read this because it's a very interesting read. Office of Policy Planning and Research, United States Department of Labor, March of 1965. He starts off like this. 200 years ago in 1765, 9 assembled colonies first joined together to demand freedom from arbitrary power. For the first century, we struggled to hold together the first continental union of democracy in the history of man. 100 years ago, in 1865, following a terrible test of blood and fire, the Civil War, the Compact of Union was finally sealed. For a second century, we labored to establish a unity of purpose and interest among the many groups which make up the American community. The struggle has often brought pain and violence. It is not yet over. State of the Union message of President Lyndon B. Johnson, January 4th, 1965. The United States is approaching a new crisis in race relations in the decade that began with the school desegregation decision of the Supreme Court and ended the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The demand of Negro Americans for full recognition of their civil rights was finally met. The effort, no matter how savage and brutal, of some state and local governments to thwart the exercise of those rights is doomed. The nation will not put up with it, least of all the Negroes. The present moment will pass. In the meantime, a new period is beginning. In this new period, the expectations of the Negro Americans will go beyond civil rights. Being Americans, they will now expect that in the near future, equal opportunities for them as a group will produce roughly equal results as compared with other groups. This is not going to happen, nor will it happen for generations to come unless a new and special effort is made. I'm going to say that again. In this new period, the expectation of the Negro Americans will go beyond civil rights. Being Americans, they will now expect that in the near future, equal opportunities for them as a group will produce roughly equal results as compared with other groups. We going forward, we got our civil rights. Now we should be able to get it together. Now we should be able to overcome. Finally, right? This is not going to happen, nor will it happen for generations to come unless a new and special effort is made. That's what always got me. It's not going to happen now, and it ain't going to happen never unless we do something special for them. There are two reasons. First, the racist virus in the American bloodstream still affects us. Absolutely. Negroes will encounter serious personal prejudice for at least another generation. Second, 3 centuries of sometimes unimaginable mistreatment have taken their toll on the Negro people. The harsh fact is that as a group at the present times, in terms of ability to win out the competitions of American life, they are not equal to most of those groups which they will be competing. We're not equipped to compete, is what they're saying. Individually, this is another thing that got me. Individually, Negro Americans reach the highest peaks of achievement. As individuals, we do very well for ourselves, don't we? But collectively, in the spectrum of American ethnic and religious and regional groups, where some get plenty and some get none, where some send 80% of their children to college and others pull them out of school at the eighth grade, Negroes are amongst the weakest. The most difficult fact for white Americans to understand is that in these terms, the circumstances of the Negro American community in recent years has probably been getting worse, not better. Indices of dollars of income, standards of living, and years of education deceive. The gap between the Negro and the most other groups in American society is widening. I read something a few years ago that said the gap had widened. It is now wider than it was in 1968. The wealth gap, right? It is widened now more than it was in 1968. A lot of you may have heard or read that by 2053, right, the black community will have zero wealth. Zero. That's where they're getting this from. That's part of what he's talking about, right? The fundamental problem, in which is the most clearly the case, is that of the family structure. Right there. The fundamental problem in which this is most clearly the case is that of the family structure. The evidence is not final, but powerfully persuasive. It's not a definite, but you cannot overlook it. Is that the Negro family in the urban ghettos is crumbling. A middle class group has managed to save itself, but for vast numbers of the unskilled, poorly educated city working class, the fabric of conventional social relationships has all but disintegrated. There are indications that the situation may have been arrested in the past few years, but the general post war trend is unmistakable. So long as this situation persists, the cycle of poverty and disadvantage will continue to repeat itself. Wow. Wow. You know, the thesis of this paper is that these events in combination confront the nation with a new kind of problem. Measures that have worked in the past or would work for most groups in the present will not work here. A national effort is required that will give a unity of purpose to the many activities of the federal government in this area, directed to a kind of national goal, the establishment of a stable Negro family structure. The issue that people had with this, with Moynihan, was that he blamed the single parent. His overall thesis, or that what we learned, his overall thesis was that all the problems in the black community can be solved. But it starts with the single mother. She's the primary problem. That is the issue. There are no father in the homes. Now, of course, you had those voices that said, well, You ran them out of the homes as soon as you made relief when you made it a requirement that there could be no man in the home. She had to shoo the man away. He had to leave. Whereas in previous times, when it was a European program, it's a book that I remember reading through. It was called when when affirmative action was white. When affirmative action was white, and it deals with all of these social assistance and social service programs and how they differed logistically and how they were structured differently when Europeans or white folks were primarily the ones using them, right? But as soon as it shifted, when you saw the emergence of black people utilizing these programs, then there became caveats that were put into place. Well, you can't have a man, you can't receive gifts. And you had those voices, those social scientists that were saying, hey, wait a minute, this is unfair. You know, you're painting an incomplete and a distorted image. You're giving us a distorted picture. You're not telling the whole story. And that was true. But in writing this, they understood that the family was breaking down. Now, I say all that to say, as much as people speak out against the government, as much as we speak out against the man, here's one of those cases. Like Sun Tzu said, if you know yourself and you don't know the enemy, you'll win half the time. If you know the enemy but you don't know yourself, you'll win half the time. But if you know yourself and you know the enemy, you'll win a lot of the time. You'll win all the time. Here it is. The government knows because I read you guys those statistics. I read you guys those black statistics. And here it is, Moynihan, what he was saying about the family structure. And if it doesn't change, there will be problems, to say the least. That's it's looking like that's exactly where we are today. That's exactly where we are today. I'm not gonna stay on this too much longer because I want to make my comments about this. I want to get into this. So, he breaks down the end of the beginning, the major events. It talked about the church and how the church played a role. It talks about, equality going through the civil rights movement. Like I said, I would love for you guys. This is right online. The Moynihan Report, you can get it. It's right online. You can read all of it. You can read through it and you'll be stunned. Here we go. Chapter 2. The Negro American family. At the heart of the deterioration of the fabric of Negro society is the deterioration of the Negro family. It is the fundamental source of the weakness of the Negro community at the present time. There's probably no single fact of American Negro life so little understood by whites. The Negro situation is commonly perceived by whites in terms of the visible manifestation of discrimination and poverty, in part because Negro protest is directed against such obstacles, and in part, no doubt, because these are facts which involve the actions and attitudes of the white community as well. It is more difficult, however, for whites to perceive the effect that 3 centuries of exploitation have had on the fabric of Negro society itself. Here are the consequences of the historical injustice done to Negro Americans are silent and hidden from view. But here, but here's where the true injury has occurred. Unless this damage is repaired, all the effort to end discrimination and poverty and injustice will come too little. In other words, it'll all be for naught. The role of the family shaping character and ability is so persuasive as to be easily overlooked. Family is the basic social unit of American life. It is the basic socializing unit by and large adults conduct in society. By and large, adult conduct in society is learned as a child. Excuse me, y'all, it's late. A fundamental insight of psychoanalytic theory, for example, is that the child learns a way of looking at life in his early years through which all later experience is viewed and which profoundly shapes his adult conduct. Absolutely. How we socialize as children is how we will perform and conduct ourselves as adults. That's a fact. That is a fact. I still carry childhood trauma with me today, right? As you all do, as you all have un, unresolved childhood traumas that you fight through every day, that you work to overcome every day. That's all this is saying. It may be hazarded that the reason family structures does not loom large in public discussion of social issues is that people tend to assume that the nature of family life is about the same throughout American society. The mass media and the development of suburbia have created an image of the American family as a highly standardized phenomenon. It is therefore easy to assume that whatever it is that makes for a difference among individuals or groups of individuals, it is not a different family structure. So, you know, the middle class talks about the middle class, the lower class, and how it's deteriorating. It's ironically familiar and relevant today, right? Now, you always get counter voices to when you read something like this. You always want to get something that would counter or that would give a different perspective so that your picture in your mind and that you can gain a clear context so that you'll see it for what it is and not for what it appears to be. You'll get some real understanding. So I'm gonna stop sharing this so I can get into what I came to say. When you make a declaration like stepfathers are men that women would only deal with if they didn't have kids. If they would only deal with they wouldn't deal with if they didn't have kids. Excuse me. When you say that, and then you say with we as stepfathers are men as stepfathers are the weakest men, right? That's crazy because this is what it does. It reminds me of two issues, right? Extended family and mentorship. First, extended family. It used to be a time, brothers and sisters, where if a black girl or black woman became pregnant and she wasn't wed and she couldn't care for her child, her extended family would step in. Sometimes it was her nuclear family, right? Mother, sister, fathers, brothers. But oftentimes it could be her extended family as well, aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever. And they stepped in and they filled a role, right? They filled in that role till the girl got on her feet. And that helped ultimately the child's development in the long run, right? Like the brother said at the beginning of the video, in the church, the black child or the child was able to see a plethora of role models in different roles. Well, the woman was able to utilize that extended family for what might have been missing. It's no different when a woman has children. That man, whoever he is, he can step in for whatever, you know, for whatever reason that the natural, the biological father is not there. The man now steps in and he is in the role. He's acting like the extended family in the best interest of the child. Also, I don't know too many women who are single who are going to lay up or hook up with a man who would accept them, the woman, but wouldn't accept her cubs. That's crazy. That's one of those no brainer common sense things. No woman, no mother worth her salt is going or worth her weight is going to embrace a man that is then not going to embrace her children. It just don't happen like that. You know, having dealt with women in the past with children, I'll always remember the relationship, but I'll never forget when those women had children. I'll never forget the bond that I was able to build with the child, right? And it went past whatever romance or intimacy or whatever I had with the woman. Because at that point, when I dealt with the child, I could impart some wisdom on that child. I could help that child in a way that they might not be receiving help, right? I could see myself stepping into a role like an extended family member to help in this child's process of development, in their stages of development. What's wrong with that? And who would have an issue with that? Right? That's a part of the way that we were able to construct that village. That goes back to that village that we always talk about. When we say it takes a village to raise a child, imagine now saying, "No, you a sucker for using that village." That's stupid. Only idiots want to use the village. That's crazy. And the next thing is mentorship. Whenever I hear people complaining about young black men, whether they're in elementary school or whether they're just hanging out on the street doing whatever, the first thing that always comes up is, where's the father? Where's the daddy? Where's the role model? Right? So if stepfathers are the weakest men, you've now cut these boys off who need mentorship, who could get it from another man, again, other than who their biological father may be, whoever he is. And for whatever reason, he's not there. You've now said mentorship is unnecessary, right? Because oftentimes that's what these stepfathers offer, and that's what they add mentorship to a boy or a girl who might need it. So when you shame a man out of help, it's like what did Tupac say? Thug life. Y'all know what thug life stand for? The hate you give little infants fucks everybody. Right? In other words, hey, you putting that out there with these children. You are rearing them, right? You you're causing them to you're causing them to hate you later, right? Cutting off these kids or shaming these men into thinking that, hey, if I go and offer my help, my assistance with a young man that might need it, that makes me less than a man. Actually, that makes him more than a man. I hear more sisters saying it takes a strong man to raise another man's children, right? Now, of course, I'm sure many of you that are watching, of an instance or a circumstance where a man might be getting taken advantage of, or a man might be getting lied to, or whatever the case may be that's unjust. And there are times where we acknowledge that. I acknowledge that at least, right? I acknowledge that these things happen. But generally, those things happen specifically, right? But generally, man, you missing out. That child is missing out on mentorship, guidance, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, right? And we saw the stats where children who are fatherless, you know, oftentimes they lag in many different areas of development. They go into different pathologies, different negative behaviors, negative trends that could be stopped. So, you know, this whole narrative, or these statements, these beliefs, these sentiments that would break down. That's why I wanted to call this a carcinogenic carcinogenic mentality. In other words, it's a cancerous, because this is cancerous to the family structure, y'all. This only feeds into these idiotic narratives that are out there: men versus women, women versus men. That's what this is. This absolutely feeds into that, and it's disheartening that people would absolutely put this stuff online. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's super crazy. If you think something like that, don't bring it out into the open, because that's truly cancerous. You know, and brothers, you know what? Hey, when we do become stepfathers, there's no guarantee with nothing. There's no guarantee. Hell, but it ain't no guarantee with your biological kids. You don't know that your biological kids are gonna like you like that, right? People will say, "Oh man, them ain't my kids. I don't get no consolation prize." Well, you don't get none with your regular kids either. Sometimes, you know. I always say, I don't know if my kids are gonna like me when I get old. I don't know if they're gonna like me, but yeah, you know, that's really disheartening. Like I said, because when you say, you know, when you cut off the extended family and when you cut off the ability or the capability or the possibility to have mentorship for a young man or girl, a young girl, a young lady, young woman, man, you are now stifling their growth because we see through the numbers what happens, right? And how these children end up. You know, I had all type of people who offered guidance, and I'm thankful for that. You know, people showed love outside of my parents. People gave me some real gems, jewels, and treasures when I was coming up, especially when I became a young adult. I feel like when you become a young adult and you get out in the world, most times that's probably when you need a lot of that wisdom the most. Not saying that you don't need it in your formative years, because absolutely we read where you do. How you're reared and how you're socialized has a lot to do with your conduct going forward. But when you get to that age where you think you know everything and you forget a lot of that teaching, regardless of how good the tutelage was, you need somebody. You would it would do you well to have somebody to reinforce or reaffirm what you already knew, right? To step in as the village. So when people talk like that, what we are witnessing, what you are witnessing, is the destruction of the village. That's people who are trying to burn the village down. And I mentioned this to someone, there's an old saying, an old African saying, a child that does not feel the heat of the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. Right? Again, that's conceptually, however the village treats or mistreats the child, it will come back around. So let's make sure that we are fostering and in support of all villages being whole, right? Regardless if it's a person, that's the optimum, right? Somebody stepping into their village that they've created. But hey, sometimes you might have to step into a village that wasn't created by yourself, and you take up the mantle and you run with it, you know? But man, I'm always amazed. Like I said in the beginning, it's some if you stay online long enough, you'll read and hear some pretty interesting things. And when I saw that, I said, wow, mm, we just gonna shame men if they stepfathers and, you know, confine women to only men, you know, who confine them to only a man, or disregard men after they have children, right? Just cut off all her potential help. And that's crazy. That is crazy. Nuts. So yeah, man. I just wanted to come on here and say that. I appreciate it's 20 of y'all. Hopefully, wherever y'all are, I hope y'all enjoyed this bill. It was kind of quick. And I know it's late, so people will watch the live back. I wanted to say before I get off here, make sure that y'all can go to the store. I'm gonna be putting that out there. Leadwithlogic7.com. Again, that's leadwithlogic7.com. And I have my nice brand. I have my nice shirts. It's one of my favorites. So I'm always wearing it. But I have different colors. I have children's, we have women's, all that good stuff, so that you guys can get on board with the movement. So, listen, I hope you guys have a positively productive and peaceful Wednesday. And, I hope you guys, I hope you guys can have a great evening, and may we meet again in the light of understanding. Hey, y'all be cool. I appreciate y'all. I remember it's Mondays at 8. This was just a little bit behind. Mondays at 8, I'll be doing this. And then on Wednesdays at 1, I'll be going live on Spaces with the stream team. It'll be me and my lovely partner, Miss Jessica Tapia. She'll be doing every other Wednesday. But yeah, you'll catch me the the second and the fourth Wednesdays of the month. So yeah. But hey, peace and love, y'all. Y'all have a great evening.